Hey guys, it's Justine here from I Should Read That, and today I'm basically just showing off. I have been kind of collecting books for a long time, whether it's intentional or unintentional. I have a few actual collections that I keep and a few things that I buy and I end up just for whatever reason having a lot of sentimental value attached to. So I wanted to show off some of my most treasured tomes today. Some of these books are just really pretty, some of them are really old, some of them are signed. It's a nice combination of books here, and these just kind of make me happy. These books make me very, very happy. So the first one that I have is actually this particular edition of The Hobbit, which will not be a huge deal, I think, to a lot of British watchers because this is a British edition of this book, but this is the edition that I initially read when I was little, and it was the one that my mum owned, and we lost it at some point, so we didn't have it anymore, and Scottish Fiance actually went ahead and bought me this exact edition for my birthday one year, which is amazing. I don't know, there's something about this particular version, I think it's his own drawing, but it's the death of Smaug on the cover, and there's something about this that evokes so much childhood nostalgia and really kind of reminds me of why I love these books so much. Sticking with the Hobbit theme, I also have this particular edition of The Hobbit as well. This is in a slipcase. I got this for Christmas from my sister, actually, when I was in high school. I was super, super, super obsessed with Lord of the Rings because it came out when I was, I think, in my second year of high school and went completely mad. So she was very lovely and very tolerant of said obsession and ended up getting me this book. Thanks, Julia. But it has its own slipcase, and it's this really lovely kind of green leather-bound stamped edition. And it's not sprayed edges, but they're kind of I don't know if you can see it, they're kind of spotted edges. And it's just so incredibly lovely and cool. I used to actually reread this edition at Christmas every year for quite a few years, and I haven't done that in a while because I have stopped rereading books quite so much, but I think I might take up that tradition again because this is just so wonderful and perfect and lovely. So I'm not joking, this, along with some of the other books in this video, have moved from Los Angeles to New York, and then from New York to Edinburgh, and then Edinburgh to Oxford. These books come with me everywhere. I've had this one for, oh goodness, maybe 15 years or so, and I just always keep it with me. I'm just gonna keep rolling with the Tolkien theme. So next I have these editions of Lord of the Rings. So kind of a funny story. When I was living in New York, just after I graduated, I worked at a horrible restaurant, a horrible Mexican restaurant that was run by a terrible man, and it is still up and running to this day, so I won't say what it is, but it was in Manhattan, and the guy who owned the place was the worst, and he was kind of, I think he must have been a bit of a hoarder, but at some point he threw a bunch of stuff out, and these were lying in the hallway of the restaurant, kind of the private part of the restaurant where customers didn't go, and myself and several people who worked there at the time were completely Lord of the Rings obsessed and dove on these, and I managed to get one of each, but I think, I've looked it up, I think these are the first American paperback run, which explains why they're kind of gross and mildewy. Literally this cover is hanging on by a thread, so I don't tend to pick these up. I don't read them, certainly, but I love these. I have never seen these covers before I picked up these books, and these actually kind of kick-started my whole collecting of the Lord of the Rings trilogy because there's so many different editions of these books, and they're all so beautiful and amazing, and I just want them all. In a departure from Tolkien, I had this book when I was little, and I don't know if we still own it or not, so I ended up tracking it down and buying an old library copy and having it shipped from the US to the UK just so that I could have another copy of it. This is called Magical Tales from Many Lands, and it is retold by Margaret Mayo and illustrated by Jane Ray. So this was a huge part of my childhood. This is basically a collection of fairy tales from countries all over the world, and it's fully illustrated. So for example, this one is an Arabic fairy tale, this one's Japanese, we have an Incan fairy tale, a Scottish one. It's just a beautiful book, and it has these incredible illustrations. I'll show, hold on. So it has these absolutely beautiful illustrations, and they're all kind of in shiny gold foil, and it's just lovely. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book. I love fairy tales, and I always have. And so when I was a little kid, this, among a few others, were like the things that I always read. But this in particular was really special to me, and I'm so happy I have another copy of it. I feel like I don't talk about classics enough on this channel, and it's something that maybe I want to start doing a little bit more because some of my absolute favorite books are classics, but I'm just not reading a lot of them lately. But one of my all-time favorite books, which you may not know, is a book called North and South by Elizabeth Gaskell. So I bought this particular edition when I was in London from an antique bookstore, and it is the oldest book that I own. This was printed in 1893, and as I'm sure you can imagine, I take very good care of it. But this is another one that has moved from many locations between the US and the UK, and it has an honored spot on my shelf. It's also got some illustration. I try to be really careful with this one. It's got some illustrations in it as well, and I love these kind of engravings. If you don't know anything about North and South, there is a fantastic BBC miniseries adaptation with Richard Armitage, which is like, it's so good, and I would highly recommend it. And the book is amazing, absolutely amazing. It's one of my favorite things. I literally can't on this channel speak about beautiful books without bringing up this one. This is Strange the Dreamer by Laini Taylor. I was lucky enough, having never read any of Laini Taylor's books and having really no interest in the Daughter of Smoke and Bone trilogy, just spotting this cover and loving the blue edges and just kind of picked it up on a whim. And I'm really glad I did because it's really hard to find these now. So I'm so incredibly happy that I have this particular edition because I feel like this is one of the sort of most perfect instances of a cover sort of perfectly matching the contents of a book. This is so perfect, it's so beautiful, and I really love this book, and I love this edition. So the last books that I have are signed editions, and I am really lucky to have, in most cases, met these authors. There's one who I have not met, but it's still kind of a fun story. So this first one is one of my favorite books ever, and I got to meet the author at Yelk last year. This is my illustrated edition of The Lie Tree by Frances Hardinge, and it's illustrated by Chris Riddell, who's a very famous illustrator in the UK, and I love his illustrations so much. They're absolutely beautiful. If you have seen the newest Tales of Beetle the Bard edition with all the beautiful drawings, that's his. So it's got, I love this kind of style. I think it's so incredibly cool. And when I had her sign my book, she drew a goose in it, which is so cute, and she actually left a spot for Chris Riddell if I ever happen to meet him, so I can have it signed by both of them. She's the coolest person ever, and it was so amazing to meet her. I actually nearly forgot about this next one. This is another one that was one of the very few books that made the move between New York and the UK. I had very little space, I shipped nothing, and I had to choose very carefully what I wanted to bring with me, and this was one of them. This is Stardust by Neil Gaiman, and I met him at Books of Wonder in New York City, which is an amazing children's bookshop. I think they do tons of like author events and stuff now. But I met him there and he was absolutely incredible. He signed books for like 12 hours. It was awesome. It was really awesome. He was so lovely, and I have the story of when I kind of frightened him at this particular signing, but it's a story for another day. I've told that story several times. But he signed it with a little shooting star, and it has these really pretty blue and white illustrations. This was my first Neil Gaiman book, and I feel like for a lot of people, their first Neil Gaiman book is their favorite one, and this is definitely one of my favorites, and I would love to reread it really soon. So now we have another book that survived the move between New York and the UK, and it's a little battered. It got a little bit battered in transit, and I read the hell out of this book, and it is about 1,300 pages, so it was really difficult to kind of read this and not beat it up. So I apologize for the condition of this book. This is The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, and I met him at Comic-Con in New York 2015, I think it was 2014. And he was amazing, and I am so glad that I learned that he was signing because I had no idea, so I managed to bring my copy of The Way of Kings, which was my very first Brandon Sanderson book. Quite a brave choice because it is very huge, but I loved it. I loved it so much, and I feel like this kind of really kicked up my fantasy reading, and this book is so amazing, and he was so wonderful and lovely, and it was just an amazing experience. I'm so glad that I have this. So those are a few of the sort of very treasured books that I have in my book collection, whether they're signed and have really great experiences behind them, or they're older books, or just kind of things I've collected over the years and really love. In the comments below, I would love to know if you are someone who collects books and collects certain editions of books. If you collect every possible edition of your favorite book, I would love to hear from you. I post bookish content to this channel fairly frequently, so hit subscribe, check back soon, and I will see you next time.